It's a wonderful Wednesday morning to be back at not just Isaac, and I'm excited to be back on the show as always to take you through the biggest stories making rounds in this very exciting industry called sports, where there's a lot of what's happening from basketball, where the Milwaukee Bucks continue their impervious run, 15 games winning on the bounce right now. We'll talk about that and so much more on the show this morning. Football is not also left out. Take a look at the FA Cup games we saw last night. Manchester City getting to winning, and of course Leicester City losing. Kelechi Iheanacho, good performer for the side. This and many more will form the crux of the conversation with you this particular morning. Well, before we get into all of this talk, let's take you through Sports Wrap Up, where we take you through the biggest stories making rounds right now. It's time. Welcome. Well, the conversation begins from tennis this morning. Novak Djokovic remained unbeaten in 2023, but only after the Serbian held off a ferocious challenge from Tomas Machac for a 6-3, 3-6, 7-6 win on Tuesday at the Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championship. Machac showcased some top-class shot-making, particularly off the backhand wing, to roll back into contention after a fast start from Djokovic at the ATP 500 tournament. Djokovic have led 4-1 in the third set before an inspired Machac rally to take a 93-time tour level titleist the distance at the UAE. Yet the Serbian held on for the win and is now on record of 13 wins and no loss for 2023 season, after previously winning an ATP 250 event in Adelaide and lifting a record-equaling 22nd Grand Slam at January's Australian Open. The world number one is this week chasing his sixth title in Dubai, where he triumphed in 2009, 2011, 2013, and 2020. His next opponent in the UAE will be world number 39, Talon Grespor. Also talking tennis. Well, sadly, Rafa Nadal has withdrawn from the Masters 1000 event at Indian Wells in Miami because of injury. The Spaniard, who is 36, has not competed since losing in the second round of the US Open last month. The 22-time Grand Slam champion was expected to be out for 6 to 8 months with a hip injury that hampered his defeat by Mackenzie McDonald. Nadal won at the California event, which starts next week, in 2007, 2009, 2013, and lost in last year's final to Taylor Fritz. Nadal's next target is likely to be the Monte Carlo Masters, where he is an 11-time champion. The first major event of the European clay court season begins on the 9th of April, 2023. Well, let's talk basketball. Nikola Jokic became the 6th player in NBA history to reach 100 career triple-doubles as the Denver Nuggets defeated the Houston Rockets 133-112 this morning. The Serbian center finished with 14 points, 11 rebounds, and 10 assists for his 24th triple-double of the season. It was also Jokic's 15th triple-double in his past 20 games, with the Nuggets winning every game he's achieved this feat so far this season. Jokic joined Russell Westbrook, Oscar Robertson, Magic Johnson, Jason Kidd, and LeBron James in reaching triple-doubles in this particular season. At 28 years old, Jokic could foreseeably climb up that list if he continues on the trajectory of his past 2 back-to-back MVP seasons. So you're talking about basketball stories. The NBA leading Milwaukee Bucks extended a winning streak to 15 games after defeating the Brooklyn Nets 118-104 away from home this morning. Milwaukee are now 1 win away from tying the third longest streak in the franchise history, while their best ever run of 20 games led by the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the 1970 season, which is now also within reach. They had to come from behind against the Nets, trailing 35-22 early in the second quarter, but they pulled things level halfway through the third, then hit the front for the entire fourth period. The Bucks were led by MVP hopeful Giannis Antetokounmpo with a game-high 33 points, adding 15 rebounds and 4 assists on his return, while the Defensive Player of the Year Brook Lopez chipped 13 points, 10 rebounds, and 2 blocks. 3-time All-Star wing Chris Middleton continued his road run with a fantastic performance, 18 points, 6 assists, and 2 steals in 23 minutes off the bench, but he's still yet to exceed 25 minutes in a game since the new year began. Well, for the Brooklyn Nets, Mikal Bridges was terrific with 31 points, 5 assists, and 2 steals, and Spencer Dinwiddie put together a strong start line of 26 points, 8 assists, and 6 rebounds. With the win, the Bucks improved the record to 44 wins and 17 losses. And of course, they sit ahead of the Boston Celtics with 44 wins and 18 losses for the best record in the league so far so good this season. Well, finally, let's talk about football. N'Golo Kante is close to agreeing a new deal at Chelsea. The midfielder, who is out of contract in June, but negotiations have gone well, and the two parties are finalizing the details over a new 3-year contract that would run until June 2026. Porter sees Kante as a good complement to January signing Enzo Fernandez in central midfield, an area where Chelsea have struggled so far this season. Kante moved to Chelsea from Leicester City in 2016 and has won the Premier League, the Europa League, and Champions League during his time with the club. Porter would also welcome the return of Kante to injury hit side after learning that Thiago Silva will be out for 6 weeks with a knee ligament injury. Brazilian international joins Christian Pulisic, Cesar Azpilicueta, Edward Mendy, and Armando Broja on Chelsea's injury list. Well, those are the stories we're tracking right now. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll have Blyden Nukim join the conversation, and together we'll do justice to what's in the plates. Please stick around. Right back at you.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is
my lord.
this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding you, lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in course of
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
day, we bring you up-to-date information on topical issues affecting the common Nigerian.
From issues on politics,
Hello, Nigeria. I remain committed.
security,
Education, health,
lifestyle, and so much more. Join Janice Kobum and Uyai Anyeken
every weekday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Rise and Shine Daily, exclusive on Spectrum Television.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting day to talk sports. My name is Blyden Okem. The day is bright, and it's not just bright, it's quite fair. The intricacies of sporting activities would be what the talking points would be all about. 15 winning streaks for Milwaukee Bucks, one key index in basketball, but we'll begin with tennis. Before we get to talk about tennis, Marizona is here for company and to do the magic. This time, not necessarily doing judgment to what's in the plate, Mario. Yeah. But we'll do the magic in this one.
Well, Blyden is a flower for me. First off, I think these things like this, I see them in Florida. I didn't know that they would bring it back to Okwaibo, but it looks beautiful. I think you look actually very nice this morning.
Well, thank you. We're not going to Florida. We'll be going to Dubai to see what's happening in Dubai. It's a Dubai duty-free tennis. And the opener for it was Novak Djokovic, world number 1. Novak Djokovic showed some level of class and dominance against Tomas in this one. The Czech Republic can host 130 ranked in the world of tennis. It had to take a decider, Marizona, for Djokovic to have a win in this one. 3-set thriller, losing the second set, and the last set, 7-6. That decider changed and made the difference for Djokovic.
Yeah, definitely. Topsy-turvy game wasn't expected to be that intense, because if you look at, the charts between Djokovic and Machac is 129 places. Djokovic is world number 1, Machac is 130. So you were not expecting that much of an intense clash, but it was fantastic to see, the Czech man put up that kind of performance. It was good to see. But for Novak Djokovic, well, I think I exonerate him because he's not been in action since winning the Australian Open.
3 weeks.
3 weeks ago, particularly. He had to take a hiatus through that injury he got, in the space of the tournament, particularly. So I think it was a little match rusty on the night, but he was able to do enough to get himself over the line. So it was fantastic for him. He remains unbeaten this particular year, 13 wins and no loss, and it shows you the quality of this particular man. Fantastic win yesterday, although it had to be quite topsy-turvy and feisty yesterday against Machac, but he did enough to get himself over the line. And next up is Talon Grespok, and I think that energy should continue from there. But fine win yesterday.
While we're looking at where the energy will continue, the intensity of tennis has always been there. And Novak Djokovic, a top-class player, always one to look out for with great dominance. But let's talk about another top-level player who's not in the logs and not in the tables and also not in competitions. It had to be the big star from Spanish division, Rafael Nadal, decent tennis player. He got injured and he's withdrawing from major competitions at the moment, Arizona. Quite difficult to see Rafael Nadal in this condition. One would have expected while Djokovic is doing the magic, Rafael Nadal is back also contributing his part. But right now, he's injured, that hip injury, and the struggles continue for Rafael Nadal.
Yeah, definitely. Very sad for Rafael Nadal, Blyden. And I think we saw this coming from towards the end of last year. You know, he missed out on a couple of competitions and then played through pain and injury in a couple of those competitions too. So I feel very sad for him. But I think this is just a case of his body telling on him. He's over 36 right now, and then he's looking forward to the twilight of his career, his tennis career, but particularly sad because we're talking about 2 Masters 1000 events, and then we know what 1000 events do to you. And Indian Wells and Miami too. You know, so we know what those 1000 events do to your ranking points, you know, in your chase to get into that top level.
Usually called the Sunshine Doubles.
Definitely.
Big competition. Last year he lost to Taylor Fritz in the final. Wells. But quite dominant he's been yesteryears in this tournament, 1000 Masters event. It will be a huge loss.
I think it's going to be a huge loss, Blyden. First up for the tennis world, because we know the competition it brings to tennis. We saw him last year, despite playing through loads of pain and injury, was able to get himself over the line, won a few competitions to even show that despite pain. And then, you know, right now it's been a downturn in terms of form for him due to this injury concerns, and I feel very sad for him. You know, and he's also been a major means of motivation for Carlos Alcaraz. So it'll be sad for Carlos not to see his mentor, you know, play at top level again in these 2 tournaments. So quite sad. And then he's got history with these competitions. He's won in 2007, 2009, and of course 2013 too. So it shows you how much of a miss he's going to be because he's got history with this competition. But sadly, it's going to be a major miss for the. But I hope he recovers fully and fully well for, you know, at the Monte Carlo Masters in Italy later. But holistically, I feel very sad for him, and I hope he recovers well and in time for Monte Carlo.
Well, let's talk about those who recovered quite well. It was still in Dubai. Felix Auger-Aliassime had a decent win against Cressy, moving forward in Dubai to the next round, but he had to fight and fight hard to get a decent result. But also let's talk about Danny Medvedev. He's extended his winning streak to 10 consecutive wins so far, and it's making sense for him in a chase for a 3rd title this year.
Yeah, well, let's start with Felix Auger-Aliassime, fine young star, but I think he's underperformed from the standards he set for himself from last year. He's played 8 games this season. He's lost 4. He's won 4. That's not entirely the record and the quality. Yes, he's a young star, but definitely we saw some top-notch performances from him last year, but he's not just been able to replicate that this year. And I just want to say it's a slow start to life for him, but had a fine win yesterday, you know, against his opponent, and it was fantastic to see him, you know, get himself over the line. Fantastic performance, but let's see how consistent he can be, because right now the record stands at 50%, 8 games and 4 wins, 4 losses. Not the record I would expect from, you know, this particular man. Let's see what he does in this competition. Moving away from all of that, Danny Medvedev, well, we said it was February. You know, he's won 10 games so far. We said it was a February record. Now it's March, right? So let's see what happens this new month, particularly. You know, but I think he's a different player. I saw him play yesterday.
Quite confident, he says.
Yes, he's actually very confident, and then brings a lot of energy. One thing that lacked in his game last year was power, was space, and he's added that to his game this year, and I think that's making a difference for him this particular season. Fantastic stuff. 10 games on the bounce makes sense for me, and like you said, it's about February. It's now March, so let's see what happens in March for him. But I think that he's beaten that duck. He's broken the ceiling of winning in February and all of that. But fantastic performance, Blyden. I hope he gets consistent, because he's one player that I expect to do better than he's doing right now.
All good outlook for Danny Medvedev moving forward. 10 consecutive wins for him in the Dubai, and it's making sense the way he's playing. And moving forward, he's expected to probably get to win the 3rd title this year quite early. We're entering March, and he's already won 2 titles, making a lot of sense. But let's move away from Dubai and see what's happening in Mexico. It had to be the Acapulco tournament. Decent tournament it is, but we'll go first with Alex de Minaur, the Canadian, doing the magic in Mexico. It all started with a game and a win against Mendes, 6-1, 6-2, Arizona. It started for him, and it's quite decent the way he's playing.
Yeah, well, for the man de Minaur, not the biggest of players. I mean, Mendes is a 17-year-old. Do you respect him to defeat a 70-year-old youngster who is just trying to...
We've seen shockers in tennis.
Well, not frequently at this level. Mendes is just a youngster that he got qualified into this tournament, you know, on very, very, you know, crazy basis. But fantastic stuff holistically for de Minaur. He's not the biggest of names. Record of 8 wins and 4 losses this particular season. And of course, his biggest achievement this year has been reaching the 4th round of the Australian Open, where he lost to Novak Djokovic. So he's not the biggest of names in tennis right now. So I think this competition is more like an avenue for him to get himself back on track and, of course, play as much as possible. If you want to talk about the top 20 tennis players right now, you're not going to put de Minaur there. So that's the story. Dumana is in the ranks of maybe Dominic Thiem, Botic Van der Jansleb, and the rest of them. It's not that top level player. So, but a win is a win at the end of the day, and kudos to him.
Well, while we're talking about a win, let's move to different climbs and see what's happening there. It had to be one superstar, Thiago Monteiro, for me, who had a decent win against Ramos Vinolas. It took 7-5, 4-6, 7-5 for him to have this decent win moving forward in the Chile Open. But there were other wins, the likes of Jere having decent win against Sasu. It's 6-3, 6-2. Quite a good game, Marizona, at the end of it.
Yeah,
winning in Chile.
Yeah, Laszlo Jere, a young star, fantastic stuff. Not young star, advanced man rather. From Czech Republic. We've seen his performances. In Rotterdam. We saw how good he was in Doha just last week, and then he looked good, particularly fantastic stuff. And then, but not the biggest of names that I would say. I look at this tournament, especially the one in Chile right now, going night. It's an opportunity for some of these fringe players, to get themselves back on track and win games as much as possible, because both of them are not participating where the big boys are. The big boys are in Qatar, in Dubai rather, right now. The big boys are in Dubai. Just a few of them in Mexico. So if you're not in Dubai, then you're playing against younger ones, right? So they should use that opportunity to get themselves back on track. We're looking forward to how they perform in Miami, in the Indian Wells too, and of course in Monte Carlo before the French Open. So there's a lot to be expected from all of these stars in the build-up to the second Grand Slam of the year, and I think this would be the chance to get to that level. Christian Garin defeated Dominic Thiem too, in Santiago, Chile yesterday. Dominic Thiem, well, he's coming back from tennis wilderness. Had loads of injury concerns last year. Got a few wins this particular year, but has not just been the biggest of names if you look at his quality. But losing again to Garin shows you how far off he's been and how far off he needs to get to, particularly in terms of getting to top level. He's still facing match rustiness. He's not fit enough. And I think that is also culminated into this particular loss to Christian Garin Blyden.
Italian Fognini, Fabio Fognini also lost to Cerveri.
Well,
Thomas Cerveri.
Fabio Fognini is shocking me because I saw his performance last. He was the best Italian on tour, apart from Lorenzo Musetti or maybe Sonego. He was the biggest name. Won a few tournaments. I remember he won one tournament far away, in the Middle East last year. And there was talk about, well, this man is back. This man has good quality. Began the season on a fine note, won his first 3, 4, 5 games. But I mean, the downturn in terms of form is remarkable for me. And I think it's sad too, because you shouldn't be losing tournaments. You're playing against young stars. You're playing against world number 180s and 130s. What happens when you play against Novak Djokovic or Huja Alisime?
Well, it goes on to show probably he's not that decent when it has to do with tennis. He's been around the scene, but not the biggest of names you could think of.
I want to judge him from his performance last year. He was good.
Yeah, he's got some experiences.
Especially the last part of last season, he was good. Won a few I think it was 2-3 tour level tournaments from October to December, and there was this talk about him coming back on track. So I'm surprised that all of that is put towards the gutter just because of his poor form right now. I hope he gets himself back on track, because for me, he should be one of the biggest names in tennis from the Italian Isle.
Well, biggest name from tennis from Italian Isle, but not good enough as always, because you look at it, the competition is thick and tough in tennis. But let's move to other climbs, the USA, and see what happened there this morning. It had to be the NBA. One key story in the NBA where we're starting off would be the man Giannis Antetokounmpo. He returned for the Milwaukee Bucks side, the best team currently in the NBA. Recent times, we've always mentioned the Boston Celtics are the best team, but right now it's Milwaukee Bucks. And the concern wasn't just about Antetokounmpo returning, hitting 33 massive points. It was the win for Milwaukee Bucks. 15 consecutive wins, Arizona. It speaks volume about the energy. They're taking the whole business to a different level.
Definitely. Well, it makes sense, particularly. I mean, nothing as sweet as having a fine form right now. It's good to see the Milwaukee Bucks get themselves back on track. The record for most, the longest streak in the history of this franchise is 20. That was in 1971-72 season when they were led by the great Karim Abdul-Jabbar. So it shows you quality. They are 5 more wins away from that level, and it shows you how good they've been.
That's the level.
Yeah, here's the story.
In recent times, we've not seen a team do that.
And it shows you quality. I think the fact that they've also leapfrogged the Boston Celtics at the top of the Western Conference shows you how shows how good they've been. Particularly, kudos to you, a man who's chasing an MVP title this season. Antetokounmpo posted a massive 33 points on the night, 15 rebounds to go with it. But I think the star for me on the night was Brook Lopez. Now, we barely talk about Brook Lopez, but he's a fantastic performer. He's a good defensive player. We keep talking about how the Milwaukee Bucks win games, how offensively fantastic they've been, but we barely take a look at how defensively decent they've been. And one man has been key to that. Brook Lopez is fantastic for me. He makes lots of steals, makes a lot of blocks, a lot of rebounds, and helps the team defensively. I think it's key to what's been happening to the Milwaukee Bucks. Fantastic stuff going on. 44 wins and 17 losses. It's the best record so far this season, and I think they've got a lot in the arsenal. But Blyden, the conversation would always be, how do you take this form to the playoffs? That's the biggest question right now for the Milwaukee Bucks.
Well, I think the answer to that question would be they've always been around Arizona, and they've done it before. 2 years ago, they won it. And last year they were in the playoff, did struggle, no doubt, at some point, but they're always a decent side. Let's look at what happened in other games. It has to be the Lakers. Dropping point. First game without LeBron James, but the story wasn't going to be in favor of the LA Lakers. They lost to the Memphis Grizzlies in this one. 121 home win for Memphis Grizzlies and 109 lost for the LA Lakers from Arizona. Big performance. Anthony Davis still being part of that mix, having 28.19 rebounds. 5 blocks in this one, but you're always going to talk about the biggest superstar, the most improved player last season, Ja Morant. What's the number? 39 massive points in this one, 10 rebounds and 10 assists, a triple double.
A perfect triple double for Ja Morant, the most improved player from last season. Was fantastic. I love what I'm seeing him do. I think he's listening to me talk, because I talked about the Grizzlies, talk about the Lakers. Well, Anthony Davis was good performance in the absence of LeBron James, and they've had a fantastic run of form for the past couple of games, and they're trying to get to that level where they qualify for the playoffs at the end of the season, and that makes sense. But I wasn't expecting them to drop to the Grizzlies. I expected them to take that momentum, defeat the Grizzlies particularly because they've got more experienced players in their side. So that was quite sad for me. But holistically, fine performance from Ja Morant, 39 points, 10 rebounds and 10 assists. We want to see more of that from him. We want to see that on a consistent basis. We want to see him become a key member of that Grizzlies side, and not just a player that comes through 2 games and goes down the other 2 games, but good win at the end of the day.
Well, good win at the end of the day, but you're always going to talk about what happened with the Warriors. The Golden State Warriors were back to winning ways at the end of it, having that decent win. Remember, Steph Curry has not been around for them, but the Warriors had a home win, 123-105 against the Trail Blazers, the Portland side. But we're always going to talk about Damian Lillard, how consistent he's been this season. Remember, coming off that 71 point against the Rockets. And now, in this particular game, he's been the #1 figure for the Trailblazers for me, hitting the number 25 points and 7 rebounds. But it wasn't good enough because he had the likes of George Paul doing the magic for the side, hitting 25 massive points, 6 rebounds, and the end of it. Back to winning ways for Golden State Warriors. How consistent can they be?
Well, that's a question that time is going to answer. But looking at the performance of the side, I think it was good to see the Warriors put up the performance I used to see them last season, because they were trailing 71-24 in the first half of that game, but they clawed themselves back into winning ways. Jordan Poole leading on the offensive weight with lots of 29 points particularly. Of course, we saw a couple of stars, rallied around the team to get that win. So it looked fantastic for the Warriors. And sadly, this for me has been one of their best performances this season, and it made a lot of sense for me. And then they're trying to see how they can push themselves to that level where they qualify for the play-in tournament, which to me it's possible. I mean, they've crossed the points 500 mark right now, and I think it makes sense for me. But for the Trailblazers, well, they trailed yesterday. They never blazed, and I think it's a thing of quality and a lack of form, particularly because you look at them holistically. They're a fine team, but anytime Lillard is not performing, they look like an ordinary team. And yesterday, Lillard had...
How would he say Lillard isn't performing? Had 25 points.
When you look at the standards he set for himself, Blyden, he posts 71 points the other game. Posts 55.
That's a one-off.
Yeah, he posts 55. I think it was late last year. Yeah. He posts 35 points, so 29 points.
I think he's had 50 points about 3 or 4 times.
On an average, at least he should be around 35 points per game. He posts 29 this morning. That's a downturn. That's below average for him.
Mari, 29 is decent.
Well, it is decent.
25 points is decent.
25 points is decent, but not for a player like Lillard, Blyden. His quality is up there. It's like saying, Jason Tatum posted 25 points. That's not his quality. That's below par for him. So
when other points are up in basketball, just this. But come on, when someone hits 25 points, give the person some credit.
There's a lot. There's a lot in all of the Blyden, but I think that was a little below his average. Holistically, I think the team performed poorly if you look at the standards they've set for themselves this particular season. But I think I'll give it to the Warriors. They were quite brilliant. And let's see that consistently. We can start talking about them becoming a proper team.
Well, let's just keep some of the talking points and look at one key talking point. It has to be Nikola Jokic becoming the 6th player in NBA to hit 100 triple-double, what a record he's been, what a history he's made, what a talent he's been in NBA. What a superstar he's been, Marizona.
Well, Blyden, I'm the one with words. But I
give it to me, brother.
Well, sadly, I like words, to describe how good this man is. I want to use simple words, particularly. He's been good,
You're not known for simple words,
well, this man...
You're dishing out bogus words.
This man has so muddled me.
Okay.
That I feel dumbfounded when I see the records. 100. How many he's had 15 triple-doubles in the last 20 games. That's impervious, Blyden. That's dominant.
Okay.
Right? And then...
The words are beginning to come.
anytime he has a triple-double,
yeah,
the team wins. That's clearly a clutch man for the side, Blyden. I want to use simple words, but this man is beautiful for the team and clearly shows you quality, right now. When you talk about the Denver Nuggets, you just cannot erase Nikola Jokic from the conversation. Little wonder he's a back-to-back MVP.
Yeah.
And he's chasing a tripit. And I think this kind of quality, he's going to win another MVP award if the Nuggets end well this season. But fantastic stuff for me. 100 triple-double. Only 6 players have gone that. We're talking about likes of Russell Westbrook, Magic Johnson, LeBron James in that list and all of that. So it's an exclusive list of Centurions, and that makes sense for me.
Well, I'll pick one thing he did say. If the Mavericks, if the Nuggets get to perform well this season, but it doesn't matter. We've seen Nikola Jokic become the MVP without the Nuggets even being the best of teams. The Nuggets have been a letdown for him, Marizona.
Yeah.
But the man is decent.
Definitely. Well, they lead the Western Conference despite all of this talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, you look at this. Look at the records. The reason why the Nuggets are top is because of Nikola Jokic.
All right, let's keep it there. We'll go on a short break. When we return, we'll get to talk about football stories all the way. Leicester City lost yesterday to Blackburn Rovers, but Kelechi Iheanacho kept the record going, scoring in that match. I will get to explain all this when we return.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
The countdown is on as Nigeria.
Welcome back. It's still Sports Central. My name is Blyden Rukem, and Marizona is still here with me for company. We get to talk about football stories and the big ones all around the world, in particular the FA Cup. But let's start with what happened at the AFCON Under-20 tournament. Flying Eagles left back had shown some dominance and class, getting into the CAF 11 at the group stages of the competition. The only Nigerian, Solomon Agbalaga, who's part of that mix. Well, one key index would be this, that in the last 2 matches where the Flying Eagles played against Egypt and Mozambique, he won the Man of the Match award. Marizona, a decent player he's been. There have been many talking points around him, but he's been emphatic. I love the smile that's coming from
you. Like fine youngster.
Yeah.
You know, fine performer, particularly won the Man of the Match award in back-to-back games against Egypt and Mozambique, and also had a goal too in one of those games. So fantastic stuff. I love the way, you know, the team is shaping up, and they had a slow start to life against Senegal, losing the first game. They've won back-to-back games right now, qualified for the quarterfinals right now. So, and then they're chasing a place in the semi-finals and also a ticket for the FIFA Under-20 World Cup. So it's good to see a Nigerian make the list, you know, of the best 11 in group stages. Agbalaka has been a fantastic player. Watch him play. You know, he plays for an academy in Abuja. Fantastic stuff. Played as a center back, but when he came to the Flying Eagles team, had to switch to a left back, and he's done a fantastic job at that position. So far, so good in this tournament. So holistically, good stuff for them, but I don't want them to get complacent. I want them to keep moving from here, get the wins as much as possible. They've got a lot on their shoulders. They have history in this competition. 7 times they've won the African Under-20, so there's a lot on their shoulders. They have to win this competition for me. So holistically, good stuff, and congrats to Agbalaka for making, you know, the best team of the group stages of the African on the 17th, on the 20 rather.
Congrats to the superstar, the youngster, many would say, with some exceptions, but good to see him perform the way he's performing for the side, winning the Man of the Match in the last 2 games. But the Flying Eagles get to play against the Ugandan side in the quarterfinals of this competition. It's taking place at the Suez Canal on Saturday. We really hope they get to win this one and qualify for the World Cup, because whoever wins it takes a spot at the upcoming World Cup. But let's move to talk about some other indices and some other big stories. It had to be one superstar from Nigeria, Kelechi Iheanacho. Everyone knows how emphatic I always do when I have to call the name Kelechi Iheanacho.
I see the emotionness. You know how emotional you get when you talk about Iheanacho. And when I saw the story yesterday about him scoring for Leicester City, you came to my mind. And I'm wondering how you're saying perfecto to his performance yesterday. But sadly, his goal was not enough because Leicester City lost. But I think I'm sad because I don't see the rationale behind starting Jamie Vardy every time while Iheanacho comes from the bench and salvages situations for you. Iheanacho has been the best performer for Leicester City in the past 4-5 games. But how does he start on the bench every time and you're playing an out-of-form, aging Jamie Vardy in the start of the game? I think it's sad. And Brendan Rodgers has got a lot of questions to answer regarding his system.
Well, probably the coach's mindset was it's an FA Cup game against a championship side. But come on, you have some top players.
You don't underrate these games. I think it's not just about that. I think it's a case of preferences. Rodgers has got this sentimental preference to Jamie Vardy over time. It's been seen. We've seen it.
But as a coach, you have to give some other players opportunity in the FA Cup. We've seen Kelechi Iheanacho start some games in the Premier League.
Kelechi Iheanacho just began starting games recently. And that was after he's been testing Jamie Vardy and Patson Daka for the first few games of the season. So I think it's not just about giving players a chance. I think it's about what he prefers. And what he prefers is not working. Start Iheanacho a lot more. This man just needs consistency. This man needs to be playing regularly for the team. We'll see the best of him. So I don't see the reason why
you're becoming an Iheanacho fan these days. No, says he used to criticize Iheanacho
not really. Not really. Here's the thing. Iheanacho is a fine player.
Yeah.
You know, but he has barely not impressed me. You know, but that's by the way. But I've seen him play for Leicester City, and I think
you've seen the potentials.
He'd be good if he plays regularly for the side. That's what I'm saying. And I don't see the rationale.
But let's talk about Blackburn, how decent they were.
Yeah.
Look at it from a championship. They're in the playoff zone now.
Definitely.
And at this point, when you're a Leicester coach and you're taking on a team from championship, for me, the gap between the championship side and the premiership side is not that huge, especially when a team like Leicester, you're lingering below in the Premier League table.
Yeah.
So playing against a top side from the championship side, you have to take it seriously.
Definitely.
And I think they didn't.
They did not, Blyden. And I think it's not just about the players. It's about Brendan Rodgers himself. He never thought this game to be much of an important game, particularly. You know, like you said, the chasm between, you know, the championship and Premier League sides are not that wide.
Yeah.
The gulf is not that wide because we see teams come to the Premier League and they upset the big girls. Look at Brentford, what they're doing right now. Look at Brighton when they came in. You know, lots of other teams. Look at Leeds United, although they're struggling right now.
They said we're going nowhere.
They've stayed.
Matching the Premier League side.
They've stayed.
Foot for foot, toe to toe.
I mean,
everything.
It shows you quality. So that chasm is not there anymore. You have to be very careful. Blackburn are also one of the best teams right now in the championship, just behind Burnley, coached by former City defender Vincent Kompany. But that's by the way. So I think Rodgers had the wrong approach to this game, and that's why he did not start Iheanacho. He has to start Iheanacho, except he doesn't want to save his job because as long as let's say they're lingering and wallowing in regulation battle.
And Iheanacho seems to be a solution for them these days.
He is, Blyden, not just seeming to be, he is a solution. The goal scoring burden is on him right now if he gets to start games, and he's been scoring He's been delivering.
18 goals now in the FA Cup.
That's a record. That's even, by the way, in the last 3 games, he's had 1 goal, 2 goals and 3 assists. You know, before this game, and it shows you quality. Imagine if he plays 15 games. Records are going to stand. So I don't understand the rationale, as I said earlier on, why Brendan Rodgers keeps mentioning here that he deserves to start games.
Let's talk about Manchester City beating Bristol City in the long run. 3 massive result it was, but one key player, Phil Foden, turning up to the party, scoring a brace, and that 25-yard stunner from Kevin De Bruyne.
Well, first off, Phil Foden, 2 goals in his. I think his quality has never been in doubt. And it's just a case of competition at that City team where he barely gets to start games. But whenever he comes through, we see his movement in the box, his arrival, and then the kind of goals he scored, prolific as well, makes sense. And he's also added goals to his game this season, and that should make sense. Well, for Kevin De Bruyne, well, we saw one Kevin we've not seen all through this season. That Kevin that scores stunners. Fantastic. Scored the world yesterday, you know, against Bristol City. But I think it was just a routine win for City because the quality, you know, was quite wide, particularly. But good win for them. The progressive next round. United later today play West Ham, and I think that should be, you know, a clarion call for them to win a game too.
Decent game, but let's talk about Bristol City.
Yeah.
Coming off a 12-game unbeaten run.
Yeah.
And finally, when you meet the big guns, they put a sword to you and it's over.
No, definitely. Well, your unbeaten run was against Rotterdam United. It was against Scunthorpe United. It wasn't against Manchester City. City are a whole different team entirely. You know, not many teams have got that quality, you know, to comfortably defeat championship teams like City right now. You know, so I think they are just the only team that I can actually confidently say that they'll defeat any championship side right now. So that quality has always been there, so I wasn't surprised by it.
Well, talking about Manchester United playing today against West Ham, what's the outlook in that one?
Well, Blyden, we had this conversation over the course of the weekend. United are still chasing 4 trophies. They won 1, 3 more to go. The FA Cup, the Premier League, and of course the UEFA Europa League. But West Ham United are not the best of teams right now. They're struggling all through, you know, but they look good in the FA Cup, so they might prove to be, you know, an upset, you know, for United. But I look at the way United play, the quality is there, the mentality is also there, the momentum is there too. So they can beat any team right now in their heads. It will take them to translate all of that to the pitch of play. So Marcus Rashford, I'm expecting him to come through for the team today. You know, of course, the likes of Casemiro has been fantastic for the side too. You know, on paper, it looks like a comfortable win for United, judging from the momentum and the good form they're in right now.
Well, there were many talks about N'Golo Kante leaving Chelsea regarding that difficulties in his contract, signing a new contract with the Chelsea side. And amid all the injuries concerns, but so far, there are talks about signing a new contract with Chelsea. And lots of Chelsea fans would be delighted about it. N'Golo Kante is back from injury, picking up bit by bit in training for Arizona. Yeah. How good is this for a Chelsea point of view? Because you look at the struggles this season, and the main struggle has been in the midfield. Yeah. When N'Golo plays for Chelsea, they look decent. Can we still have that N'Golo Kante after this long layoff of injury?
Well, Blyden, I am very, very concerned and very uncertain too about if we'd see prime N'Golo Kante. Kante lately has been going through several injuries, and that clearly tells you that his body is not willing to make him get to that top level.
The longest hamstring injury I've ever heard of.
That's the thing, you know, and the reason why it's this long is because of his body, telling on him particularly. So that's one. And then secondly, Chelsea,
and part of it, he's nursed it for a long time.
For a long time.
Managed it last season for a long time. Yeah. You always see him have a strap around that thigh.
Yeah, that's true.
Kept playing. At some point, he was told to go for surgery, refused. Yeah. And that has been the bane for him, keeping out this long.
Definitely, Blyden. But let's talk about his significance to Chelsea, right? I think it's sad because Chelsea need bodies in the midfield. Chelsea need somebody to cover the grounds, and then somebody that would help Enzo Fernandez in covering the grounds in midfield. Only Kante can do that for Chelsea right now. So I hope he's got the energy and the physical, you know, fortitude to run, because he would come to that Chelsea and the duty would be to run particularly. But it's good to see that his contract will be extended at Chelsea. I hope that he gets to play regularly for Chelsea and not go through injury concerns, because Chelsea need him right now.
Well, quickly, let's look at what will happen today regarding the Premier League. The Premier League returns. One key index would be the champions, showing dominance and class, but I have a tough nut to crack in Everton. Everton's usually such a difficulty in these days. You do not know which Everton side will come out. On the other hand, Liverpool will take on Wolves, Arizona. Let's start with Arsenal-Everton.
Yeah.
Difficult game it could be.
Well, Arsenal, little here, little there lately, not convincing.
They've been winning games.
Yeah, but not convincingly like
the mark of a big team would always be whether you play so well or not, you're winning the game, picking the 3 points.
The indication about Arsenal's form right now is that they are this close to getting to bad form. right now. That's the thing.
Such a thin line.
Once you're struggling, it means you're very close to getting to that point where you start struggling. So I hope that's not the point for them. But Everton's focus right now is surviving relegation. So I don't think they'll place so much importance in this particular game, against Arsenal later tonight, particularly because they want to survive the drop zone. Well, they want to survive the drop zone. So firstly,
a decent result at Emirates will help them in that cause.
Well, I think that Sean Dyche should bench his key players because he's got tough games coming up in the Premier League, the next 4 or 5 games. He has to get good results to stand a chance of staying afloat in the Premier League at the end of the season. So he'd prioritize the Premier League over the FA Cup and maybe give Arsenal this chance to get a win. I'm just saying, but that's what it looks like. That's the outlook in your voice, in your words particularly. So Arsenal getting this win looks good for me. And then for Liverpool Wolves, it's a clash of 2 struggling teams. If not for the fact that there is something called placement to the table, Liverpool and Wolves look evenly balanced for me, and I think the game can go either ways.
Well, when you get to describe Liverpool and Wolves, and you say that evenly balanced, that's quite concerning. It goes on to show the fall of Liverpool over time. These days, they've been walking alone. But that's where we draw the curtain on today's edition of Sports Central. My name is Blyden Okem, and my zone has been here for company, doing the magic all along.
Thank you very much, Blyden. Well, this flower will head back to Florida very soon. This flower goes to Florida.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching Sports Central.